folks, here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Morcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Up now as we've got three wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
See just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Oklahoma International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Alpha Touring Challenge Season number 9, as we are here today at Circuit of the Americas to kick off race number 9. Folks, it's going to be an exciting day of racing, and I meant to say round number 6 as we get ready to see qualifying underway and see where drivers are going to stack themselves up on the starting lineup. And this broadcast tonight will be a double broadcast. It will be split up into 2 separate broadcasts, so after this show is complete, there will be a showing of the Nürburgring race that happened last week. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do it live because my son, unfortunately, came down with a little bit of a fever. So, now that things are all fine and dandy here, once again, we can have ourselves a great day of racing. And to start it all off, we are going to start off with round number 6 here at Circuit of the Americas, as drivers all currently getting those times in, trying to see where they're going to set themselves here on the timing tower, as we see the majority of the field all out here looking to get those tires warmed up on this very, very technical, windy, bendy track that is Circuit of the Americas. And I got to tell you, folks, you know, even with the layout of this track, there's also other parameters such as the weather, which we can see on the right-hand side of our screen. A little bit of a cooler day here in Texas, which is a bit surprising, all things considered. 74 degrees is the ambient temperature, followed by an 85-degree Fahrenheit track temperature. So things are getting a little hot on the track at the moment, and I'm sure that will increase here as the time goes on. And I just realized the air density here as well. Okay, interesting. Don't think I've ever seen that number before on there, but hey, we'll roll with it. Needless to say, most of these drivers still getting their first lap around the track here before they officially get into their flying lap, which is why we were seeing a lot of drivers kind of take it easy there that first time around, as we're starting to slowly see drivers pick up the pace and get that temperature into those tires and really start to see what their qualifying pace is going to look like, and hopefully be able to put themselves in a decent starting position here. A fairly stacked field that we have for today's race, meaning a lot of competition that drivers will expect to see for both the 20-minute sprint followed by the 30-minute feature. So a lot of action to be seen throughout today's race as we kick things off, and right now still awaiting for the first driver to come across the line and set the pace here for today's race. So with that in mind, we can talk a little bit about point standings. Now again, I know that we haven't had a chance to go over last week's race at the Nürburgring. No one knows who finished where yet other than the drivers themselves. But I'm going to do a little bit of spoilers. But again, if you want to catch the action from last week, stay tuned after tonight's broadcast, because immediately following this one, there will be that Nürburgring one coming up just very shortly afterwards. Micah Hendricks currently sitting in the lead for your point standings, 298 points for the Alpha Championship. James Carr in that second place spot, 283 points. Logan McKenzie in the third place position with 269 points. And as we move on over to the Delta Championship, Mike De Almeida still leading at the moment and still looking strong to come away with as a two-time Delta Championship winner last season, coming away with the Delta Championship as well, looking to do the same thing here again this season. Eric Statzer in that second place spot with 104 points, and Jacob Wally in third with 88 points. Among the Delta Championships, so just to round out the top three for both of the Drivers' Championships here at the moment, as on the left-hand side of your screen, you can start to see the drivers making their way across the line for the first time here today and setting those official laps. A 2:20.087 here for Damon Mitchell. And I got to tell you, you know, Circuit of the Americas is a very, very large track. So, you know, a 20-minute sprint race here is only realistically going to be a few laps at most. I mean, it's going to be a short race, it feels like, for drivers. They're not going to get a whole lot of opportunity to really get some laps around this track before the race is already showing the checkered flag. So they got to take that time wisely, and they really, really got to push themselves on a track like this where it requires precision as well as commitment to the execution of your strategy, whether, you know, you're planning on entering a turn a little bit later, whatever the case might be, to get the most speed out of your lap. You know, there's a lot of different strategies that drivers can deploy. Which one will be the best here tonight? Damon Mitchell currently holding that provisional pole position by 0.8 of a second, just ahead of Francois Schenk, that 18 Audi sitting in that second place position, followed by Logan McKenzie in third. So pace right now looking a little bit sporadic between the top three, and I'm sure as the time goes on here, we're going to see that kind of close in a little bit here, but kind of surprising to see that much of a spread between first and second place and beyond, especially here with the Alpha Touring Challenge, a series, in my opinion, very well known for the consistent fields and just how close the competition is throughout all of their races. So just a little surprised to see that right out of the gate here. But again, just getting those laps, or getting those tires up to temperature, getting the grip that you need, and so on and so forth to get that lap time. And again, there's just a lot of time that you spend around this track. We could take a ride on board here with Logan McKenzie. Just kind of appreciate how long it actually takes to get around this track. Logan's not too far from the checkered line, probably about 9 turns or so at this moment, and if I'm not mistaken, I have to look here because I can't remember off the top of my head. There is 20 turns here at Circuit of the Americas, so I was right. About 9 turns away he was from the start-finish line here. So coming out of turn 11, get a long back straight here, and heading into turn 12, things get just even a little bit more complicated, as there is just back-to-back kind of strange left-handers. You get that weird, almost chicane-ish kind of ordeal with 13 and 14, and 17 and 18, just that sweeping right-hander, just making things real interesting for drivers here. So one of the more unique tracks as far as layout is concerned that I personally have seen. I'm sure there are plenty of others that are just even more ridiculous that I have not seen before, but this one definitely sits in probably the top 5 for me, or maybe even top 10 at least. But needless to say, how strange the track might look layout-wise isn't necessarily the point here. Is Micah Hendricks, wow, Damon Mitchell, nearly at the same time, both of these drivers come across the line to set new personal best laps here. James Carr, Dan McFarlane, I mean, it just keeps ticking away here. Dan McFarlane, the man to stand out at 219.485, with James Carr in that second place position a 2:19.686. So coming down to the wire as there's only 5 minutes left to go, and with those 5 minutes, that is not a whole lot. There's basically 2 laps. You have 2 laps left to give it your best here. And a 2:19.485 is going to be your time to beat. And frankly, pull out your stopwatches, folks. Do it along with us, because I got to tell you, it is not, it's not easy. So with Dan McFarlane up at the top of the pole at the moment, a 2:19.485, still the time to beat. James Carr, Damon Mitchell rounding out the top 3. We can also take a look a little bit here at our team standings and see where our drivers currently sit, or our teams currently sit. Curb Your Enthusiasm looking to come away with back-to-back team championships here in Season 9, 588 points that they currently have here in going into race 6. Yellow Flag Motorsports in the second place position with 450 points. Breakfast for Dinner in third with 436 points. A very close battle for second place between Yellow Flag Motorsports and Breakfast for Dinner. Real Friends Racing in the fourth place spot, 212 points. And Sim Racing Grid, who Dan McFarlane is a driver of, 204 points at the moment. So Dan McFarlane looking to get a good head start into our sprint race here today, as the top 10 will be inverted going into the feature. So a 20-minute sprint race followed by that 30-minute feature. And Dan McFarlane is looking to spearhead the competition here today, and looking quite good so far. Whether or not we'll see drivers remain this kind of consistency throughout the race remains to be seen. Again, this is a very technical and sometimes tricky track to be on, so gonna have to keep everyone's eyes peeled. Pit crews are definitely going to be a little more anxious about seeing their machines working their way down into the pit box, as you never know what you're going to see. But I think a majority of the drivers here are going to do more than okay and be able to put on a fantastic race, not only for themselves, but for everyone watching at home. As we get ourselves only just about a minute and a half left here of qualifying, and we get ready for that green flag to drop here momentarily and kick the action off here tonight. So as that clock ticks down, really just kind of looking for if any of these drivers are going to come across that line. There's a few that are about a few turns left before they make their way across the line for the last time here. Damon Mitchell going to be one of those drivers. So far, James Carr, he manages to come across the line with a 1/10 of a second over Dan McFarlane at 2:19.301. Very impressive work here for James Carr in the final moments of qualifying. Moves his way up to the front row and sits on provisional pole, as the remainder of the field come across the line for the last time There it is. The checkered flag is waved, and we get ourselves ready for the action. Here today, round number 6 of the Alpha Touring Challenge right here at Circuit of the Americas. And starting up in your front row, James Carr, Dan McFarlane. Second row is Damon Mitchell and John Lazan. Francois Schenck, Micah Hendricks in the third row, followed by Logan McKenzie, Connor Roccatella in the fourth row. Edward Gorman, Jesse Olson in the fifth row, Ben Aiken, Eric Statzer in our sixth row. Moving on down the grid, Randy Ayers, Matt Zepka in the seventh row, Daniel Sedino, Kevin Clark rounding out the eighth row, Archie Williams, Brian Saab taking up the ninth row here today. Brian Sohn, Mark Darnell in the 10th row, Christian Ost, Corey Hudson in our 11th row, followed by Zach Perry, Cody Leach in our 12th row. Last three drivers are Anthony Probst, Kurt Smith, and Raymond Tu, rounding out the field here today as drivers get themselves on the starting grid and lined up, ready to go. Gloves on, visors down, and everything in between. Folks, grab your drinks, grab your snacks. It is about to go down right here at Circuit of the Americas for the Alpha Touring Challenge, the largest touring car challenge here on the iRacing service in North America. Taking the action down here to Texas, the deep south, where everything is bigger, and the tracks, well, I would say it speaks for itself. And here we go, lights are out, the green flag drops, and James Carr, a fantastic start. Drivers scrambling just behind him, and look at this pack going into turn number 1, 3 wide. We've got a driver sideways getting punted right into other drivers into turn 1. It is calamity as drivers all scramble to try and get some room to make their way on and out of turn 1. Heading back up to the action here, we can see just how some of this is unfolding. Just take a look. The single file groove that has developed here. All through the S's, and gonna come out of 10 and 11 and pinch them all right back up once again. Here it is. Let's see if anyone's going to get pinched up here. Looks like everyone's doing a very good job. Little side-by-side action here for 17th, Christian Ost, as well as looks like Archie Williams there. A few drivers trying to take advantage of the long straight that they now have heading into turn 12. James Carr still your race leader at the moment. About an 0.8 of a second gap between himself and Francois Schenck. Francois trying to reel in our race leader at the moment as other drivers 3 wide here for the moment. Little door banging happening, and who is that to the inside? It looks like Randy Ayers. Man, he looked like he found a very good line there. Didn't quite work out, I think, the way that he was hoping it would, but hey, he stuck his nose in there and he made it happen. Props to Randy here for that move. That was a great one to watch. Side by side, though, Damon Mitchell, Dan McFarlane. Battle for third place here as they are wheel to wheel. Damon Mitchell going to get that inside line. He's going to have the advantage here. And now John Lazan's going to get in onto the inside to the rear end of the 23 machine. The 27, excuse me. Oh, and it's sideways for John Lazan. A little bit of perhaps maybe some instant karma being served there. I know it wasn't intentional on John Lazan's part when that happened. He actually did a fantastic job of checking up there. But, yeah, That was unfortunate. He definitely got caught up in that real bad. We can go back and take a look at that here. Actually, in just a brief second here. See how this one actually unfolded here for John. Oh, that was netcode. That was 100% netcode. Take a look at this. Netcode. That is 100% netcode. That is, ouch. Big time ouch. So back to the action, though, as John Lazan finds himself down in pit road, and understandably so. I think that's going to be... I think that's potentially... He might just... I don't know. If the damage is severe enough, he might just call it for the sprint race and come back, hopefully, for the feature. Side by side, Dan McFarlane, Damon Mitchell. Battle for third place continues on, and even more drivers starting to stack themselves up into this bit of action here. Edward Gorman, one of them looking to get in on it, as he goes side by side with Damon Mitchell. Dan McFarlane trying to get away from it. Connor Ocatello, Micah Hendricks. Nose to tail between those drivers, and you can see even more of that starting to develop behind them. Just outside the top 5 here, but it is getting spicy up here in that top 5. James Carr, Francois Schink, Dan McFarlane, they're trying to get as much distance as they can as these drivers all fight for position. It looks like Gorman goes a little wide there and misses potentially a braking zone here, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Either way, that cost him massive position loss. Might have to go back and take a look at that one, potentially. Micah Hendricks trying to get right to the inside of Connor Roccatelli here. They're side by side. 55 machine going to have the advantage for the time being. Through the S's here, Micah's just going to get right into that draft as best as he can. And it is all throttle management. Through the S's there, it is really just, it's being able to place your car in the right spot. Don't go too much, don't go too less. Too little, I should say. And Raymond, too, alongside Randy Ayers, gave him a tap to the driver's side. Sends him off track there, and now drops back to the 22nd spot. Gonna have to try and recover from here. Brian Sohn now gonna be just up ahead of him. He's gonna have a good line on his exit here. Gets right up to the tail of that 30 machine. And I assume will make a little bit of a slingshot pass here once they get a little closer to the braking zone here. And Brian, I think, is aware of what's about to happen, and he's not gonna fight that one. He is very well aware of what was coming, and he was a good sport about it. And that's half the battle in racing, folks, is knowing your battles, because you know what? There's usually a driver that's faster than you out there most of the time. At least in the world of sim racing. I can't say for other real life disciplines, but we'll leave it at that. Big shout out to our folks in the chat, Mike De Almeida and Ian Bertolucci. Thank you guys for joining me here tonight. It's great to have you guys. I hope you guys are enjoying the action that's been developing here thus far. It is looking quite spicy already, and I'm really excited to see what the feature is going to kind of hold for some of these drivers, and I mean really this entire field. That extra 10 minutes, you know, it gives them a few extra laps to work with and kind of get more temperature into those tires. I mean, these guys, they can stay out on these tires for quite a long time, and I think 30 minutes is going to be a good stint to really kind of beat them in and really start to see what the pace is going to look like here for these drivers. Looks to be, though, that James Carr starting to see some pace degradation here as he is losing that gap that he currently has over the field. I mean, not by much, but slowly but surely we're starting to see it get chipped away at. Francois Schink just about a second and a half separating himself and James Carr at this moment. We can actually take a look at the difference here between James Carr and Francois. And right as I'm saying that, you can kind of see lap 2, James Carr setting the, well, oh, it was his fastest lap, but it didn't count because he must have hit an off-track limit somewhere. Needless to say, his second lap was his technically his fastest lap of the race so far, but because he exceeded a track limit, it doesn't technically count according to iRacing. So that, I mean, well, obviously it doesn't count either way, but needless to say, point being, Francois Schink trying to reel that one in. Last lap, he was able to do so. Let's see as they come across the line here once again. 220.025, and Francois Schink just 0.2 of a second behind it. So, I mean, again, not a huge difference. But, I mean, if you're looking at lap 1 to lap 2, I mean, Francois Schink has had a huge push heading into these last couple laps to try and reel in James Carr. So there is a clear effort being put in here by Schink, by James Carr, by this entire field, frankly. But for those guys up there fighting for that lead spot, or at least James Carr trying to keep himself in that lead spot, stay in the front. I mean, it's just going to be a matter of consistency and seeing both of those drivers kind of realizing to themselves, or maybe even just kind of feeling that the tires were able to take a little bit more. They were able to get a little bit more grip out of them and really start to crank out those times. So Damon Mitchell, Connor Roccatella, Micah Hendricks. So on the bottom of your screen, we can take a look at it's more or less a way for us to kind of look at the time delta between various drivers on the field. And right now we're comparing Damon Mitchell and Dan McFarlane. We can kind of fine-tune this a little bit more. Let's go between Micah Hendricks and Damon Mitchell here. So I know it might look a little confusing to some of you folks at home, but if you're looking at the very tippy top of it, the numbers that are changing right now, that is the current gap that is between Micah Hendricks and Damon Mitchell. And then below that, second lap, third lap, fourth lap, you can see the difference between that gap as it's kind of progressed here throughout this race. And as it's just changed here, we don't get to see the previous lap for some odd reason, but needless to say, you can see how that gap has started to change throughout this race, and it is a good tool to kind of see how drivers are kind of losing pace or gaining pace throughout a race. It's a great way to kind of visualize that. Logan McKenzie, Jesse Olsen in the battle for sixth. Ooh, McKenzie getting right up to the tail of Olsen. Trying to see if he can get a good look to the inside here, or get a door open for a passing opportunity here to get himself closer to that top 5. Sitting in that 7th place position at the moment, Jesse Olsen holding on to 6th at the moment, and I don't think he's going to want to give it up here too easily. Archie Williams here finding himself in a bit of an interesting spot as drivers look to make their way around 993 machine, and watching Corey Hudson here. He's definitely trying. He's definitely pushing. He's giving it everything he's got here. Corey Hudson trying to stay right on the tail of Brian Sohn here. And I think might just be a little late. A little, well, it's tough to say because I can't quite tell. I can't tell if they're just a little too late on the brakes coming into the turn, or a little too soft on the brakes. They're not locking up the tire, so they're not hitting it too hard, obviously. But I think if Corey here, if he really worked on that braking just a little bit, he would definitely put himself in some very, very spicy passing opportunities here. Because he's got the motion down. He's got the right idea. Oh, that was mint right there. That was minty right there. There you go. There you go. That's what we like to see. Corey Hudson here as he comes down the long straight here. Still looking to the inside of Brian Sohn, trying to get a good opportunity set up for himself here. But various battles have been developing around the track here for some time. And a lot of them have been between the same drivers. They have not left each other. But one driver I would like to point out and kind of mention here, one that we really haven't had an opportunity to talk about too much of, Raymond 2, the 996 machine, the hard charger of the race here today, up 16 positions from where he started in today's race. So Raymond doing an absolutely incredible job here in today's race, moving up into nearly the top 10. He's got one more position to do that, but it's a little bit of a distance that he's got to close in under 3 minutes. Well, nearly 3 minutes to be able to accomplish that. But the fact that he's 16 positions up from where he started is just incredible. Hats off to you. Raymond doing a fantastic job going and getting himself a good, frankly, a pretty decent starting position heading into the feature. I mean, frankly, if he did get into that, if he was in that 10th place spot right now, heading into the feature, I think Raymond would be a very solid contender for that lead spot. And if you can get in the lead here and stay in the lead, I mean, it's pretty much all she wrote from there. And I think that's kind of the idea that Raymond might have been going for there. And almost being able to pull it off, but man, that is just incredible feat to accomplish in of itself. And remember, folks, as we are getting ready to wrap up the action here for our sprint race, immediately following tonight's action, there will be a live showing of the Nürburgring race that happened last week. Since I wasn't able to cover it live last week, right after this race, we will be covering that race and getting that action covered for you guys. And so stick around if you want to catch some more racing action here right after this one. We are going to have that right here on Team Goon Squad right after this race. So make sure you stick around and stay tuned, as there is going to be some exciting action heading into the Nürburgring. So the clock has ticked away here, and the checkered flag will wave as drivers make their way around for the final time. Only a few battles remain out here on the track. Actually, looks like Zach Perry, Christian Ost. A little bit of a side-by-side groove there for a moment as we now start to see drivers make their way across the line. James Carr will be amongst the first one. Coming away with the win here in the sprint race. Francois Schink comes across the line for second. Dan McFarlane in third. You can see the checkered flag starting to come in on the right-hand side, or on the left-hand side of your screen, excuse me. There it is. Majority of our field having come across the line now to finish out their races here today. A relatively quiet finish here for most of this field. And for James Carr, a very smooth and very solid victory going into the feature event. Now, it will be a top 10 inverted start going into our feature. So, with that being said, we have a little bit of time here before we kick things off. The driver's having a little bit of intermission time. So the first driver that we're going to bring up here in the booth talk a little bit about what the action that we just witnessed here. And who better than to get it from the man himself, James Carr, coming away with that just incredible victory. And James, I gotta ask, what do you think was the biggest reason that you were able to keep that much distance between yourself and the rest of the field? I mean, it just obviously consistency and pace and all those things kind of matter and contribute to that. But what do you think was the biggest factor that helped you come away with this very, very impressive win here today?
The biggest one was my biggest fear was Dan. He has a lot of pace of this track. He's clearly pretty fast here. And he got tangled up in the starting incident. There's a big wreck. I didn't see what happened, only saw it in my mirror. And secondly, I'd attribute it to ordering a bunch of Korean barbecue chicken beforehand.
Well, you know what? A good meal, I think, is always a great way to start a race, and some Korean barbecue. Now you got me hungry. All right, James, heading into the feature, we see yourself starting in that 10th place position, and you know what? This track it poses a lot of great opportunities for passing, but it can also be a very chaotic start going into lap 1, turn 1. What's kind of your plan of attack here going into the start of the feature here?
I don't want to give away all my secrets, but let's be patient.
I think that's a great strategy. James, I don't want to poke and prod too much, but I think it was a fantastic showing of your pace and your ability here at Circuit of the Americas. A very technical track, a very testing track for a lot of drivers, especially those who haven't been here too often or don't race it too often. It can definitely kind of put you through the ringer if you don't put your practice in and learn the track. But James, you definitely seem to be the master, the guy to look out for here tonight. But another driver that we could all definitely look out for. He was the hard charger of this race here. I'm trying to remember. Raymond 2, the 996 machine, moved up 16 positions from where he started here tonight. He was only one spot away from hitting that 10th place spot to be able to start in the front row. Who's another driver out here that, other than Dan, who you think could definitely have the pace to pull something off here tonight?
If I had to put money on who's got it for the next race, money's going on Logan.
Well, there we have it. We got a prediction for next week. All right, Dan. All right, James. Excuse me. I won't take up more of your time here. I know you got to get yourself suited back up and ready to go here once again. But is there anyone watching the broadcast or at home in the pit crew that you want to give a shout out to and thank before you jump back in the car and get ready to go?
Sorry for the troubles for your PC, for Kurt, who didn't make the race, and David, we're all rooting for you and the team, so he's not here today. He's fine, but he wasn't feeling it today, so shout out to my team.
Well, James, as always, thank you for joining me up here in the booth tonight. It's always a pleasure. I hope to get to talk to you again tonight before the night's over, but if I don't, good luck to you out there, and hopefully get to see you up here in the booth before, hopefully next week or in a few races' time.
I think you'll see me by the end of next race.
All right, I look forward to it. James Carr coming away with the win here in the Sprint Series. Hopefully be able to come away with something here in the feature and also in the next few races here. James, thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you out there on the track again.
Thanks, Mason.
You have a good one. Alrighty, folks, that was James Carr moving himself into the winning position for our sprint race here today as the time ticks away here for our warm-up session that drivers have, and we get ourselves ready to kick things off and get ourselves some spicy action here for race number 6 of the Alpha Touring Challenge here at Circuit of the Americas, right here on Team Goon Squad. And as we just have only about 20 seconds left to go before we get our starting grid for our feature event. Now, I do know for a fact and without a doubt that James Carr will be starting in that 10th place position. As far as the rest of the field, that will be announced here in just a few seconds. right, so let's run through our starting grid. Ben Aiken, Eric Statzer in the front row. Edward Gorman, Logan McKenzie in our second row. Jesse Olson, Damon Mitchell in our third row. Micah Hendricks, Dan McFarlane in the fourth row. Francois Schink, James Carr in the fifth row. Connor Roccatella and Raymond 2 in our sixth row. Moving on down the grid, we have Daniel Sedino, Matt Zepka in the seventh row. Mark Darnell, Zach Perry in the eighth row. Followed by Christian Ost, Randy Ayers in the ninth row. Brian Sohn, Brian Saab. That's ironic. That is actually, wow. I did not even realize how close those... Anyway, moving on. Corey Hudson, Kevin Clark in our 11th row. Cody Leach, Archie Williams in our 12th row. Followed by John Lazan, Anthony Props in the 13th row. And Kurt Smith rounding out the field here today. Cody Leach in the chat. Team owner yanked me out of the car, found out I was a fraud in the sprint race. COTA exposed me. Oh, it's okay. COTA gets the best of all of us. And here we go. The lights are out. The green flag is dropped in turn one, already proving to be a chaotic start here, as expected. James Carr here, he is, you know what, he took that literally when he said he was going to just take it easy. Micah Hendricks, oh no, Jesse Olson, a huge, huge wreck for both of these drivers. We'll go back and review that incident here in a moment. I want to keep the action on our leaders here as they continue to fight it out. Everyone's still scrambling for position. Oh, 3 wide through the hairpin. Wow, who was that? Brian Saab? Jeez, oh Pete. That was it. That was incredible. I want to go back and watch that. Just 1 second here. Just look at this. Oh, it's Daniel Sedino. It was Daniel Sedino. That's honestly kind of a sick paint scheme. I'm not going to lie. Moving on. As we're getting a little sidetracked here, but look at all of the drivers scrambling for position still as we get ourselves into the horseshoe. Little side-by-side action developing here inside the top 10 and a little beyond. James. Logan McKenzie, Francois Schink, James Carr. All in a groove here. Logan McKenzie trying to break up that air behind him. We're going to ride on board here with Francois Schink for just a moment, heading into turn one. And there goes his teammate as we see. My, oh my, Logan McKenzie doing everything he's got to stay up here in the top 5. Dan McFarlane, James Carr, I mean, it is just a doozy here in the top 10. Oh, whoa, who was that? Looked like James Carr there, slipping and sliding. Trying to keep things steady for himself here. He's already starting to see a little bit of separation here. I mean, not much, though. It's really hardly separation at this point as Brian Sohn disappears, abducted by aliens. Dan McFarlane, Raymond 2, James Carr, and Raymond 2, I mean, as I was kind of predicting here, right alongside James Carr, I mean, both of these guys kind of starting right next to each other, now fighting to get into that top 5, which I really am not all that surprised by. As I mentioned in James Carr's interview, you know, Raymond's got some really great pace here. Logan McKenzie, Edward Gorman here is starting to show his colors here in this race. So a lot of drivers getting that second opportunity to really kind of show that they've got what it takes here to win a race as well. But this track really, you really kind of, you got to start well. You have to qualify well and be in a good starting position to really have a good chance to come away with a win here, at least in a short race format like this. Longer races, I mean, you might be able to work something out here, but in something as short as 30 minutes, 20 minutes, you definitely want to have a good starting position and be able to attack those positions as quickly as possible when everyone's bunched together and you don't have a half a second, whatever the case might be, to the next driver ahead of you, and that time all starts to add up very quickly. So a single file groove has developed for the most part around the field. John Lazan, Daniel Cedino. Oh boy, Francois Schink trying to get away from Ben Aiken, Logan McKenzie, Dan McFarlane. All of these drivers have been within about 2 to 3 to 5/10 of a second. And Ian, yes, we can get a replay of that crash here. Thank you for reminding me, because I kind of forgot for a minute. Oh, wow. Jeez, oh, Louise. So that was the 16. Sorry, I was trying to find a... So Jesse Olsen was whom we saw this one involved here with Micah Hendricks. Now let's kind of break this down here a little bit. So it looks like Jesse just came in a little too hot to the inside. And there goes Micah. Well, did he start to turn in right there? Or no, he might not have. I don't really have a great angle. Okay, yeah. So it looks like a little bit of net code. Combined with he was a little close for comfort there, and well, okay, all right, Ben Aiken, right as we tune back to the live action, he finds the wall. Let's see what happened here. This was a big impact here as well. Looks like he was right to the outside of James' car, and oh man. Was he trying to get around him there? Hold on. Enhance. Okay, don't go that far back. Oh, geez. Give me not that camera. Something else. I can't even tell. I wish we had a better camera angle. Anyway, that's not what we want to see here. Not at all. And Ben Aiken, yeah, that thing is seen some better days. Let me tell you. And yeah, like Ian's saying, not much James could do there. You really can't. You have inches, not even, separating these two drivers, and it really is kind of a recipe for disaster in those situations. You really don't have hardly any reaction time at all, if any, actually. I mean, unless you just have inhuman reaction speed, you know, that it's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to avoid that situation fast enough. If it's by pure luck, maybe. But needless to say, I think I'm more than certain that that James is going to be feeling pretty. He's going to be feeling pretty rough about that one, or at least he's going to, you know, he's going to send his apologies at the very least. I don't think he's just going to, you know, like, oh well, you got in my way. A lot of these drivers are great drivers and great sportsmen. And I think James definitely was aware of something was going to happen there, and I think someone went off track here. Zach Perry, it looks like, finds himself off track, but Ian making a very good point here that with Micah's crash, James is going to get to P1 in the Drivers' Championship. So James is he is on a tear here. Now, if you'll remember, we can go and take a look at our point standings at the moment. Micah Hendricks, 298 points. James Cart, 283 points. And Logan McKenzie, 269 points. So, you know, James looking to the outside of the top 5 right now with a little over 15 minutes left to go. He still has time to work his way at least a position or two more, if not more. It's all going to come down to realistically if any of these drivers ahead of him are going to make any critical mistakes that are going to allow him to, 1, close the gap between himself and these drivers, and 2, really kind of open the door for him and kind of give him some opportunities for position. Big action here between Damon Mitchell, Dan McFarlane, Logan McKenzie. Drivers fighting hard for position. And honestly, I want to take a moment to ride on board here with one of our drivers and just kind of appreciate the battles that are developing here. Let's actually take a moment. Let's ride on board here with James Carr. I'm going to be quiet for a moment. You guys enjoy the sights and sounds here as we see coming across the checkered line. We'll get a lap on board here with James Carr and see the action just outside the top 5 and how this unfolds. That was a lap on board here with James Carr. Just to highlight the action behind the wheel. And give everyone at home a good idea of what the action is like around this very technical track. Not everyone gets the opportunity to get a race, to race at Circuit of the Americas, and a lot of folks at home who may have not been around racing for very long may have never seen this particular track before, and what better way to really learn what it looks like than to see it from the driver's own perspective. We're watching right now Mark Darnell, Zach Perry, Kevin Clark, Corey Hudson. Perry going to look to the inside of Mark Darnell here. And a good pass. Very clean here from Zach Perry. Making quick work of that 14th place position. And just behind them, Kevin Clark, Corey Hudson. They're going to lock back in and continue to fight with that 16th place position here as well. So as we are about to approach the 11 minutes to go mark, kind of a weird spot to bring this up, but this is where, you know, any mistakes that are made here, even small ones, loss of position, anything of that nature, it's going to be really tough to get that back. Because at this point, you maybe have 4 laps. Roughly about 4 laps, given the about 2 minutes and 20 seconds that it takes to get these drivers around the track. So, you know, by lap 13, we're going to be expecting to see that checkered flag. And with that, you know, it's all going to come down to, at this point, I think, consistency obviously is always going to prevail, but you really... I think some of these guys are really going to try and push things here just a little bit, as much as they can. Especially drivers like James Carr, Raymond too, I mean, who have been fighting a lot throughout both the sprint race as well as this feature. Going to be looking to come away with good points, but not only for themselves but for their team. And as we get closer to the end here, Edward Gorman starting to see himself lose that gap little by little, and you can see that being exemplified here on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Last 3 laps. Oh, Francois Schenck trying to get to the inside of that 137 machine. He's not going to make that one an easy pass for him, though, but you can see the difference lap by lap, how Francois Schenck has slowly been reeling in that 137. Now, it's going to come down to a question of what kind of, you know, what's the difference in tires here between these two drivers? You know, how aggressive has one driver been compared to another? There's obviously not a clear-cut way for us to be able to just tell that without, you know, blatantly iRacing just telling us the data that we want to know, but it's, you know, not going to happen. So it's a little bit of guesswork. I mean, obviously these drivers are going to have their own information to tell them where their tires are at, what their tire wear and temperature and all that fun stuff is. But we, as broadcasters and being viewers of the sport, that information is usually tightly guarded, and they don't want that to be known amongst other teams. Damon Mitchell looking to get in on some of the action up here in the front of the field as well. Really, this top 5 are all looking like they're going to turn the heat up here. I mean, they're all just looking so consistent and so smooth right now. They're all very similar in line, very similar in pace, all of the above. Kevin Clark, Mark Darnell side by side as they come across the line, getting ready to head into turn 1. One of the closest battles that we have on the track at the moment. As Edward Gorman looks to hold on to this lead. About 5.5 minutes left to go here for the 137 machine and this field. The pressure is on. Oh, right up to the tail of Edward Gorman. Francois Schink gives him a little bit of a love tap there. As we come into the horseshoe portion of the track. Folks, I can't tell you, this is on the edge of your seat action right now. I mean, single file groove throughout the top 5, all within about 0.3 of a second of one another. Any mistake that is made here is going to be dire. Oh, man. Francois, he definitely has some serious exit speed out of that final turn. Having to check up there a little bit to avoid getting into the rear end of Gorman. Looks to the inside to turn 1. Doesn't quite have it. And Francois Schink definitely going to be looking to try and reel him in at least one more time before this thing is all said and done. So Ben Aiken coming in with a little bit of insider info, given that he was involved in the incident here, but the incident involving himself and James Carr, if you watch it from his perspective, James drifted right and effectively pit maneuvered me. Unfortunate that the replay doesn't allow you to see that view. And he held a straight line. Oh! Yeah, Ben, I guess I could have watched it from your perspective. I didn't even think about that at the moment. I guess I was looking for the actual contact on the outside of the vehicle, I guess is what I was trying to find a good angle of that, as opposed to the inside. Needless to say, that is a real tough break. It's unfortunate. It does happen, though. But you live to see another race. And hopefully we get to see more battles with Ben. And more of the field out here. I mean, what we just saw as these drivers came across the line, the white flags being waved from the flag stand side by side. Dan McFarlane, Logan McKenzie. James Carr as well trying to get in on some of this action here, as I think the white flag has kind of sparked something in these drivers. The jets have been turned on and into overdrive, as it's now their final opportunity to fight for position. Edward Gorman, he's kind of taken advantage of all of this kind of unfolding behind him. And he's built up a little bit of a gap, about a second now, starting to dwindle a little bit here. He's only got to manage his way through these few turns. Few remaining turns. And he comes away with that win. So these drivers come down that long, long straight. Logan McKenzie, James Carr side by side. Carr looks to the inside here of Logan McKenzie, trying to get an edge here. McKenzie going to have the inside advantage heading into the horseshoe. Man, Carr trying to give it everything he's got to stick himself into the top 5. Logan McKenzie definitely not too interested in just giving that one up to him, though. Checkered flag is out here as Edward Gorman navigates his way through the final turn. And across the checkered line he goes, taking home the W. As other drivers scramble across the line here in the top 5 and just beyond to finish out what is a incredible feature event here. Corey Hudson, Christian Ost out of the final turn, side by side. Corey Hudson across the line. He takes it away for that 12th place position. As the remaining drivers make their way across the checkered line, man, Micah Hendricks, what a tough break here for Micah. He finished it out though, and you know what, I gotta give him props for sticking with it and not just, you know, taking it behind the wall and calling it quits. You know, I can't tell you how many times I see drivers who make that decision, and it's rough. I mean, I understand the thought process behind it. You know, you've already spent enough time as it is, trying to get enough practice into the race just to be put out, and it's tough. It's tough all around. But like I said, it's great to see Micah sticking with it and completing the race. With that being said, we can get into our post-race results and go ahead and get ourselves ready for some post-race interviews. And so starting up first is going to be Mr. Damon Mitchell, coming away with a 3rd place here tonight. Sorry about that, Damon. Didn't mean to drag you in mid-conversation, but Damon, great finish from yourself and for your team here tonight. It was definitely a tough one here at COTA. Not an easy track, not an easy first few turns that you have, especially with the amount of drivers that we have in this field. But Damon, you know, what was kind of what do you think was the most difficult part of your race here tonight, and what do you think could have been a little bit better for yourself if there was anything?
I think the most difficult thing was it's such a wide track, so it just lends itself to like people just diving in and getting into that cone of danger. and just trying to protect that, because if you protect it too much, then you compromise your exit, and then they get the run. So it was just trying to place that car in the right spot the whole time. That was probably the trickiest part of the whole race, just to keep the cars behind.
Yeah, and you did a fantastic job of just kind of managing that traffic behind you and not letting drivers kind of sneak into that door to try and overtake you, because this is a track where, like you mentioned, drivers will take that dive bomb opportunity if they can, because there's plenty of opportunities to do that. But Damon, taking away a third place finish here tonight and kind of looking forward into next week's race, looking into Barber Motorsports Park, not a track I've been there a couple times, but what's kind of your game plan heading there? Is it a track you're going to be feeling relatively confident in, or is it one of those that you want to put in an extra couple laps of practice in just to make sure you're ready for it?
To be honest, I haven't been on Barber yet, so it's going to be a new track for me, but I wasn't very confident coming into COTA even this week. So, but I put in some laps. I did some setup tweaks yesterday that really cut out like a half a second in my fast lap times. And then during practice today and qual, putting it in third in qual just kind of showed that I had the pace here over some of the other traditional fast guys. So, I'll just try to do the same thing next week and continue the streak, maybe. This is my first podium in ATC in like 3.5 seasons here, so I'm just relishing in the victory for right now.
Well, Damon, I think you are on a fast track to keep this momentum going. If you're able to do it on a track like this, I'm very confident that you'll be able to do it on a track like Barber. So, Damon, I look forward to seeing you back out on track next week, and hopefully get to see that 27 machine come away with yet another podium, or maybe even a big old W for yourself. But Damon, before you sign off and before you get to celebrating with your teammates, fellow drivers, and pit crew, anyone you want to give a shout out and thank you before you head out tonight?
I just want to shout out to everyone in ATC. Everyone here is friendly, helps each other get faster, right? So we can have battles like this. It's been a long time coming. I've had the speed. It's just trying to get up there and work with it. So I just appreciate everyone.
Well, Damon, I appreciate you for joining me up here in the booth and taking the time to have a chat with me and kind of celebrate your victory here today, your podium finish, your first one in what seems like probably a long time for yourself. But like I said, I'm sure there's more to come here in season 9. But excuse me. But Damon, before thank you for your time here. I appreciate you, and hopefully get to see you next week. And as always, good luck to you, and we'll see you in the next coming weeks.
Thanks, Mason. Have a good one.
You as well. Thank you. All right, and last and certainly not going to be least here, it looks like Francois not going to be able to make it to the booth here tonight. He's probably got to make that flight back to Canada here. But anyway, Edward Gorman going to be joining us up here in the booth, coming away with a big old W. Edward, the first question that I have for you, it was getting real spicy there in the last couple laps, the last 5 minutes or so of the race. What was kind of your big limiting factor there? It seemed like maybe tire wear was starting to kind of be a little bit of a contributing factor to your pace. What was kind of holding you back there in those last 5 minutes, or what do you think was kind of giving Francois that bit of extra pace there in the end?
I was looking at telemetry in practice, trying to figure this out too. Like, I'm 2 seconds off the top guys now, and I feel like part of it's the car, part of it might be my setup, I'm not sure. And I was really just trying to hold on to at the end there. I was trying to save the tires that whole 30-minute race, and yeah, trying to keep the heat out of them, and I held on just barely.
Well, just barely was just enough, and you managed to come away with that win. And on a track like this too, where any mistake is going to be costly, and you managed to stay consistent, keep your head down, and and really kind of focus in on coming away with that win. And even with all the pressure that Francois was giving you, I mean, he was all over your bumper there for a while, and you didn't seem even phased the slightest by it. So that was really, really awesome to see. You staying confident and just coming away with a very clean victory here for yourself today. But looking forward to next week. I'm going to ask you kind of a similar question that I asked Damon. You know, next week, head to Barber, and with the W now underneath the belt here for Season 9, what's kind of the goal here for next week? Is it going to be just kind of carry this forward and maybe come away, you know, another top 3, top 5? What's kind of your ultimate goal for next week?
I'm pretty sure I did well at Barber last season. I think I picked up a win there. I hope I can do better there. I mean, I know I won this, but I think I won it because I messed up in the heat and lost like 5 positions, and that put me on starting on the podium, and I was just able to defend. So hopefully I can do better. Is it a 60-minute race or is it a sprint challenge?
Let me check for you. I think it is. So it's going to be a full race, so it'll be an hour long.
Okay, yeah, I do like the longer races better. I can get into a rhythm in those.
Yeah, you know what, and I think Barber is going to be a good one for that kind of layout race format. You know, being able to have that full hour to be able to just put your head down and really focus in on a full race. But Edward, needless to say, you managed to overcome your challenges that you were facing there towards the end, and really you came out extremely strong and looking quite fantastic while doing so. So Edward, before I let you go and before yourself and your pit crew get to working on that 137 in preparation for next week, anyone you want to give a shout out to or thank you before you head out and celebrate?
Yeah, I'll shout out what I was using for the telemetry, Garage 61, and a lot of people in this series are putting their telemetry up there, and it's a great way to learn. Like what Damon was talking about, people help each other learn, and it's a ton of fun.
Well, Edward, thank you for joining me up here in the booth. Congratulations once again on your victory here tonight. It is always a pleasure to get a chance to talk with you and always see you out there on the podium. As always, I look forward to seeing you next week, and hopefully we get to talk to you again, if not next week, in the few weeks' time, here in Season 9.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. You have a good one, Ed. Alrighty, folks, that was Edward Gorman out of the booth, coming away with a win here tonight for the Alpha Touring Challenge, Season number 9, race number 6 here at Circuit of the Americas. My name is Mason Heimball with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action here tonight. And folks, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the broadcast, if you want to catch more action here with the Alpha Touring Challenge, in just a few moments, about maybe 15-20 minutes or so, however long it takes me to get everything set up here, we're going to be live here once again and getting ready to cover the Nürburgring race that happened last week. So stick around, stay tuned. We will be back in just a few moments to cover the Nürburgring race from race number 5 last week. Thank you all for watching this race here tonight. We will be back in just a few short moments. We'll see you in the next one.
Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Bolts. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Borcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now, as we've got 3 wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Nice to go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
Just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the 1-on-1 up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 to lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.